Okay, now we'll move on to the next topic. We have already done about a little study about asexual reproduction. Today I am moving on to sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction in higher organisms. This is what we are going to study today. I will only be taking up plants today. Later in the next session I will be taking up animals. So the topic today is sexual reproduction in higher organisms. Remember, whenever we talk about sexual reproduction or we talk about higher organisms, the basic thing that you should remember is when we compare sexual reproduction to asexual reproduction, remember it is a more time consuming and more energy consuming and a complex process. It's a complex process which involves more energy and more amount of time compared to the asexual reproduction. So what are the two disadvantages if I say? It's a very complex process. It involves more time and it also involves more amount of energy. But still, the higher organisms opt for sexual reproduction. So what is the reason behind it? The reason is very simple, because it helps in variations, and you know it is variations which lead to evolution. So what we have done till now is sexual reproduction in higher organisms. Why higher organisms go for sexual reproduction? The reason is it leads to genetic variations, which of course lead to what? Variations which are very important for survival in adverse conditions or in changing conditions. Now, compared to the advantages and disadvantages, what is the main disadvantage? Advantage I have already told you. It leads to variations which lead to better chances of survival. Now, what is the disadvantage? It's a complex process. It involves more time and it involves more energy. If you can see, I have written on the board. There are two more terms, okay, synonyms which are used for sexual reproduction. Or we can say sexual reproduction is also known as, we have two more terms, I have written on the board if you can see. It's syngenesis. Syngenesis. S-Y-N-G-E-N-E-S-I-S. S-Y-N syn and genesis. Syngenesis, or the other term is amphimixis. A-M-P-H-I, amphi. Okay, mixing of different. Amphibians, you know, two different. So amphi means different, mixing. So it is amphimixing. So what are the two other terms which can be used in place of sexual reproduction? We can call it as syngenesis, or it can also be called as amphimixis. How do you define sexual reproduction? It's very simple. Mode of reproduction that involves two parents. It involves two parents of opposite sex. Please specify that you need to mention this, that the gender, the sex has to be different. Two parents of opposite sex and leads to the formation of zygote by the fusion of the male and the female gametes. Everybody knows this definition, not that important. Moving on to offsprings. Let us compare the offsprings of asexual and sexual reproduction. When we did the offsprings of asexual reproduction, we generally use the term clones. And we said they are identical to each other and they are also similar or identical to their parents. See how this is different. Offsprings produced in sexual reproduction are neither identical to each other nor they are identical to parents. So this is another similarity that you have got, in difference that you have got when we talk about offsprings in sexual and asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, the offsprings produced are generally called as clones because they are identical to each other and they are also identical to the parent. But in sexual reproduction, they are neither identical to each other nor they are identical to the parents. I just told you that this mode of reproduction is a very elaborate, very complex and a very slow process. But still there are some advantages. Advantages I have already discussed. It leads to new genetic recombinations which causes variations. Genetic variations are caused which leads to chances of survival. Second, it plays a very important role in evolution. Obviously, if there are going to be variations, there is going to be evolution. First, it leads to genetic variations. And second, it leads to evolution which increases the chances of survival of a particular species. Or see, mainly we have seen one thing, that all the flowering plants and higher animals opt for sexual reproduction. So which kind of organisms opt for sexual reproduction? The flowering plants. I am talking about which plants? Flowering plants. And all higher animals, they opt for sexual reproduction. Now an individual is born. Now to attain sexual maturity or to become fit for sexual reproduction, there is a time period in which an individual becomes sexually mature. So on the basis of that, we divide the life of an organism into three phases. The pre-reproductive phase, the reproductive phase and the post-reproductive phase. We have some more terms for this, I'll tell you. The first is the juvenile phase. Juvenile. Also known as, if you talk about biological terms, it is the pre-reproductive phase. So what is the juvenile phase? It is a period during which an organism grows to attain sexual maturity. That means it is not yet sexually mature, it is still growing to reach that stage where it will become sexually mature. So it is known as pre-reproductive phase, or it is known as the juvenile phase. In plants, the same phase is called as the vegetative phase. What is this phase called as? This is called as the vegetative phase. So in animals, this pre-reproductive phase is called juvenile phase. In plants, this pre-reproductive phase is what we call as the vegetative phase. The second phase in the life cycle of an organism, I am talking about higher organisms, is what we call as the reproductive phase. This is the phase when an organism becomes reproductively mature and can start sexual reproduction. Third is the senescent phase. Senescent, look at the spelling. S-E-N-E-S-C-E-N-T, senescent phase. This is what we call in biology as the post-reproductive phase. Okay, this is the phase during which an organism loses its sexual maturity or sexual potential for sexual reproduction. So we had three phases. We had the juvenile phase in animals and vegetative phase in plants. Both these phases were pre-reproductive phase. Then we had the reproductive phase, and the final is what we call as the senescent phase. In both plants and animals, this transition, if you see, from one phase to another phase. One phase to another phase means juvenile to reproductive or reproductive to senescent. I mean, any conversion from one phase to another, basically there are two factors which affect it. The first is, it is the role of hormones. Hormones are very important. Okay, hormones play a very important role in the transition or the change from one phase to the other phase. And the second factor which plays a very important role is the environmental factors. So what are the two things which play a very important role in the transition of an organism from one phase to another phase? Juvenile, reproductive and senescent phase. It is the hormones and the environmental factors. Moving on to sexual reproduction in plants. You know about annuals, biennials and perennials. Okay, so we are going to focus this on different categories based on annuals, biennials and perennials. Listen, the annuals and the biennial plants. I am talking about which plants first? The annuals and the biennials. What do they do? In these plants, if you see, these phases are very evident, they are very clear, they can be easily differentiated. Which phases? The juvenile phase, the reproductive phase and the senescent phase. They are very clearly defined. In which plants? In the annuals and in the biennials. But when we talk about perennials, these phases are not exactly defined. Means you cannot differentiate very clearly that the plant is in which stage. It is a juvenile phase, reproductive phase or senescent phase. So we have, for our convenience, we have divided into annuals, biennials and perennials. So the annuals and biennial plants, they exhibit all the three phases, the juvenile, reproductive and the senescent phase, very clearly demarcated. It is very easy to observe them. So we say that these phases are clearly defined. What is the word we generally use? Clearly defined. But in perennials, beta, these phases are not clearly defined. Let me tell you about another very interesting thing on which we generally have a question in board examinations. If you will turn the pages or the previous year's papers, you will find this question coming very frequently. Some plants, they're neither annuals, biennials or perennials, they have a very unusual behavior of flowering. Unusual flower behavior. Now this, I would like to give you an example of one. Strobilanthes kunthiana. This is the scientific name. Strobilanthes kunthiana. Look at the spelling. Straw, S-T-R-O, Bilanthes, B-I-L-A-N-T-H-U-S. Strobilanthes kunthiana. K-U-N-T-H-I-A-N-A. This is Strobilanthes kunthiana. Commonly in India we call it as a Neelakurinji flower. What is the flower called as? Neelakurinji. Okay, because of its color probably, Neelakurinji. It's a very unusual flowering behavior. It flowers only once in 12 years. Once in 12 years it flowers only. So if it is flowering now, the next flowering will be after how many years? After 12 years. One more very interesting example that I would like to give you is about the bamboo plant. It flowers only once in its lifetime. You know the lifespan of a bamboo is 50 to 100 years. So it flowers only once in its lifetime. So if a question comes about unusual flowering behavior, then mention about two plants. First is Strobilanthes kunthiana, which flowers after 12 years. And the second is the bamboo plant, which flowers only once in its lifetime, that is somewhere around 50 to 100 years. Let's talk about sexuality in plants now. Very common terms, you have done them, I'm just revising with them. Monoecious, dioecious, all of you know about it, but a very fast revision. Monoecious, the other word is homothallic. The other term, biological term which we use for monoecious is homothallic. See, in some plants like fungus, let's talk about the fungi, the male and the female reproductive structures, they are present on the same plant. The male reproductive structure and the female reproductive structure, they are present on the same plant. Such kind of plants are called monothallic or monoecious plants. You need to focus more on examples. Examples are Chara and Cucurbita. Chara, when you write C-H-A-R-A, you write Chara. Chara is pronounced, but you write it as Chara, C-H-A-R-A. And the second is Cucurbita. So two examples of monoecious or homothallic plants, if I ask you, CC, they are Chara and Cucurbita. C square, Chara, Cucurbita. Moving on to dioecious or heterothallic plants. You know about them also. Dioecious, or the other term we use for them is heterothallic plants. In some lower plants, I am talking about lower plants, the male and the female reproductive structures are present on different plants. If the male reproductive structure is present on another plant and the female reproductive structure is present on a different plant, such plants are called dioecious, or the other term is heterothallic plants. Examples are written on the board. It's Marchantia and date palm. Marchantia, M-A-R-C-H-A-N-T-I-A, Marchantia, and the second is your date palm. See, in angiosperms, the flower you know is the reproductive part of the flower. We are talking about which plants? We are talking about the angiosperms. It is the flower which is the reproductive part of the flower, of the plant, sorry. So in some angiosperms, for example, mustard and China rose. I am giving you examples specially, which ones? Remember, mustard and China rose. Each flower has both the male and the female reproductive structures. That means, beta, the stamen and the pistil, both are present in each flower. Each flower has its own stamen and its own pistil. That is why such flowers are called as bisexual flowers. What are these flowers called as? Bisexual flowers, and the examples I have just done with you, mustard and China rose. Whereas in some angiosperms, for example, papaya, watermelon, sunflower, rice, wheat, these flowers, each flower has either the stamen or the pistil. That means either they'll have the male reproductive part or they'll have the female reproductive part. Such kind of flowers, they are known as what flowers? They are known as unisexual flowers. The unisexual flowers are again given two terms. Either they are called pistillate flowers or they are called staminate flowers. Pistillate flowers or staminate flowers. I just told you unisexual flowers will either have the pistil or they'll have the stamen. So if a unisexual flower only has the pistil, then it is known as a pistillate flower, or you can also call it as a female flower. Similarly, those unisexual flowers which just have the stamens are known as staminate flowers, or they are known as the male flowers. This is all about sexuality in plants. In the next video, we will be taking up sexuality in animals.